Well, thanks very much indeed. Welcome to the show. I am Jim Ferguson, and I've got a very, very interesting guest with me here today. His name is Mika Vauhkala from Finland. Welcome to the show, Mika. It's great to see you again. How are you?
Thank you, Jim. Great to see you again. And Christmas coming. It's actually sun shining a little bit here up north as well. So
Okay.
we had times.
Yeah, absolutely. It's pretty cold here in the UK, I've got to say. But you and we've met a few times now in the Netherlands, and although you're actually from Finland, but Mika, as we always do with our guests, maybe you could just tell us a little bit about your background, what you do, where you're located in general terms, please.
Yes. So Mika, my name. I'm 44 right now. Entrepreneur, been for 20 years. Now living here in the capital, Helsinki. Been here for the last 15 years mostly. And I worked with insurance business a lot, and now I'm more in the IT business uh, and other projects going on here. And at the same time, following what's going on in the world very closely in Europe, USA, UK, Finland, all around the world. And freedom has been the big value in my life always. And 2005 or six, I think so, we were spending time with my friend a lot, watching sports and doing sports. And then we have these sayings we say when on different occasions, coming out of the blue. And I remember saying to him that I'm committed to one thing, and its name is freedom. And it's like 20 years ago, and it's kind of like running in my blood. And that's what we about to talk today with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was clear very early on when I met you that you were a true freedom fighter, and we're going to find out a little bit more about what that means because a lot of people call themselves freedom fighters, but you actually are the real deal. You took a very principled, a very courageous stand against the state, against the authorities, and maybe you could set the scene as to what led up to that and then the subsequent business that happened after that. But I mean, you're a successful business entrepreneur. They messed with the wrong guy, didn't they?
Yeah, they picked the wrong guy. Absolutely. So what happened was in 2021, where the COVID pass came in EU and Finland, um, I was kicked out maybe from 10 places altogether. And there was no, uh, we didn't know how long that will last. And then you were able to go like shopping and maybe pharmacy if you need to go, but you were denied the entrance to many cafes, restaurants, sport places. You couldn't really travel. Many people were also suffering, getting later from the work. And what happened to me was that I was 10th of December 21, exactly like 3 years ago, with my friend going to have a breakfast, and we were just that okay, let's see where we can get. And it was, I think, the third place that morning that we were kicked out from Fazer. You spell it Fazer. It's Fazer in English. It's a very iconic Finnish catering and cafe brand. Immigrants from Switzerland came initially to Finland over 100 years ago, and it has revenue of 1.5 billion euros. So it's pretty big. It's not publicly listed on the stock exchange, but very wealthy family is owning the business. 9 o'clock, we wanted to just have croissant, cafe, and oatmeal and something. And then they were asking the COVID pass, and I was negotiating with the person asking it. And then I requested the manager to come, and I had a talk with her as well. But they said that you have to have the COVID pass, otherwise you cannot be here. And then the thing was that I asked her business card, and I told her that I will not leave it here. And yeah, I was really pissed off. And many people were contacting the politicians and emails and social media and all kind of things, and nothing was doing any change anywhere. And finally, at the fourth place we went to, we were able to get breakfast with my friend. For many people, this looks like a very minor thing, but it wasn't really that. There was many things behind this, as we can talk more. And then I was talking with the lawyer and stuff like that, and then I sued the government, and I started this process when the COVID pass was active and in demand. So I didn't start it after the COVID pass was not anymore in use, but right then. So I have sued the government of Finland and Pfizer Cafe both. And to our knowledge, this is the only case in the whole world, not only Finland or Europe, where the highest government body and the big corporation both are being sued for the COVID pass. So there is a big responsibility I have when I have stepped into this.
Well, I mean, once again, it was a very courageous stand. You took on the state, you took on the government. I mean, goodness, that it doesn't get much bigger than that. It takes real courage to do that. And obviously, your passion and your belief in freedom of choice, freedom of movement, freedom in general is coming through incredibly strongly. And I applaud you for that. We're gonna go into the details of why that is so important that people take that sort of principled stand. But where are we at the moment? Because we were talking about an incident that happened now, well, almost exactly 3 years ago. And where are we with that at this present point?
Yes. So this year, 2024, April, we had a 3-day trial in the District Court of Helsinki here. And we had Dr. Asim Malhotra from UK, London here, who is well known in UK, USA, Australia, around the world. He was here a few days in Helsinki with me, and he was speaking in the court on the last day for 1.5 to 2 hour. A phenomenal testimony from him about the safety of COVID vaccines, as he himself was taking 2 Pfizer injections when the COVID started, like one of the first people in the world who took them. So he was speaking, and there was also Hanna Nohunek. She is chief physician of Finland's Health and Welfare Institute during COVID time, and she was my witness there. She also works as the chair lady of SAGE, which is a advisory group for WHO on vaccines and immunization. So she's a really high-profile person internationally, even though she's from here. So she was there in the court as well, and many others. And we testified to the judges and the opponents that it was known before December 21 that the vaccines do not stop transmission. So this was confirmed by this Hanna Nohunek, Asim Malhotra, and also Asko Järvinen, who is the head of infectious diseases in Helsinki University Hospital. So they knew this by the summer 21 by the latest, and they informed also the Finnish government of this, and the vaccine pass came here mid-October 21. Still they put it there, and what's interesting is that this Hanna Nohunek gave a written statement to the court ordered by the government that this COVID pass was at least technically a pilot project of EU, that EU Commission has a long-standing will to have this kind of vaccine pass, and this was at least technically a pilot project of that. Yeah, so I gave my testimony in the court. We can talk a little bit more about that a little later here. But the verdict came at the end of May this year, and the judges ruled out that I lost the case, that I had to pay 120,000 euro to the government and Pfizer altogether. And they wanted even to punish my lawyer, that he has to pay some part of that he should have never picked up this case. And yeah, so there came, and then we sent a complaint to the Court of Appeals June this year, like few weeks after the verdict. And now last week, 28th of November, came a verdict from Court of Appeals that they don't give us permission to handle the case there, and they're not going to return it back to the district court, what we demanded. So now we have to file complaint to the High Court of Finland next. So this is where we're going now, and everybody understands. I think the judges understand, the opponents understand, we understand, people following, that this is a really big hot potato, because we are, in a sense, we are against the EU Commission, we are against the WHO, we are against the WEF agendas, and all of this. And this is very important. I want to say to everybody listening to this talk we have with Jim, that last year, 1st of July 2023, EU Commission and WHO made a deal that COVID pass is next time used worldwide. So just go to Google, put WHO COVID pass, EU Commission. So they have made this kind of free agreement already. So there is a really big risk that if there comes a next epidemic or pandemic or whatever you call it, that they will put this vaccine pass worldwide to be used. And it would be like COVID time maybe would look like a little rehearsal, like a training time for that.
Like a pilot.
Like a pilot, completely like a pilot, exactly like Nohunek said.
Yeah, well, I mean, I pay tribute to those professionals who came in and who gave evidence. Dr. Simil Holtra is well known, of course, here in the UK, but also internationally. He's a very professional doctor. He's taken a very principled stand, and Hanu Aha, the person that was there in Finland. I mean, these are people with very, very deep understanding and knowledge of their own subject matter. So the fact that they came to your aid says a great deal about you, actually. And of course, we've seen the likes of Ursula von der Leyen under investigation. She's the head of the European Commission, and as president of the EU. And of course, she is under investigation because of her family links to Pfizer, and the vast sums of money that were spent that essentially comes from the taxpayers of the various different European Union members. And of course, that benefited her personally. So she's under great investigation for that. Whether anything comes of it, we don't know. I mean, corruption and the sort of the power plays that are behind it, the globalist movement is very real. They're very dangerous, and they are also very well connected with a lot of power and a lot of money behind them. And of course, we've seen evidence of that coming out in the power plays that they're taking forward. And you're right to point out that this COVID pass that you were talking about, there was a lot of talk at the time that this was going to go into lots of different countries, but there was some significant pushbacks in a number of them. And so it didn't become a thing, for example, where it would be required in the UK to go into a restaurant or supermarket per se, although they did have an app and they were trying to enforce it. I think what you're saying, though, about the future, a future pandemic, and we just very briefly before we went to recording, we mentioned the fact that we're seeing an increasing narrative in relation to H5N1 avian influenza, which commonly known as the bird flu, in beef herds in the United States. There's hundreds of herds that have been infected now, according to the data. And they are looking at, according to Bill Gates, who says there's going to be another pandemic. He's absolutely certain there's going to be one. And he's on record, a very infamous video clip of him and his wife, Melinda, talking about the fact that next time they're going to be paying a lot more attention. It's almost, and they had a strange look between them. A knowing look is what we call it in England, almost like they know it's coming. And of course, he is heavily involved in introducing vaccines into cattle and animals and into the food stocks. He's buying up farmland like there's no tomorrow, not only in the United States, but in South America as well. And it's not because he believes in traditional farming methods. He is all for people eating his synthetic meat products and other garbage that he is trying to introduce. And of course, in the UK and indeed in other parts of Europe, as I learned from a colleague in Denmark last night, the additive of Boavar is being put into the milk supplies. And I was going to ask you about that, if you have any knowledge of milk supplies or dairy products. For example, here in the UK, Arla is one of the big producers of milk, and they have agreed to put this product called Boavar in, which is supposedly to reduce flatulence in cattle. But there are very serious concerns that this product could have very detrimental health effects on human beings. Is there any kind of moves afoot, just before we go back to the court case, is there any kind of moves afoot in Finland on the milk or the dairy products that you're aware of?
Exactly. So I've been now following online. I haven't had time to really put myself attention into that, but there is exactly this Boever, what you said. So now people here in Finland have been contacting these major big companies who produce milks that you have to stop this Boever to be put into cows and so on, that it can have many different kind of effects. And that's connected to this climate change, climate hoax, the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, think about it, some cow that God created, that you should put some kind of potentially harmful, at least to some degree, medication that they wouldn't change the atmosphere or the climate, sorry. So this is complete hoax, the whole thing, and people are really contacting the authorities and all these companies, and this one company, Valio, I think I saw their response to somebody here, and they are just giving this corporate bullshit, like they are not really getting into the matter, they just kind of let it go, and and that, and they cannot really win the argument, like why should you in ever put that kind of medication in the cows, because it's not a problem if they're farting or whatever, breathing here, or what do you call it? It doesn't make any sense.
The whole narrative has been bought into. They're pumping this message into children in school. They're panicking kids, and they're saying, yeah, the world's going to end in I think 4 or 5 years ago they were saying it was going to end in 3 years or something ridiculous. Well, we're still here, but the point is, this actually is part of a much, much larger agenda. The globalists don't believe in democracy. They believe that they are almost like demigods, and they are using technology, they're using AI, and they're using political persuasion. They're putting their puppets into in particular into Western nations. We've seen that here with our current Prime Minister Keir Starmer, who's a globalist. He's an avowed globalist. He is somebody who has been on record as having chosen Davos rather than Westminster. And you talked at the very beginning about politicians in Finland, and I was going to ask you, is there, I would use the term contamination from the World Economic Forum taking place with your politicians in Finland, because we certainly have that here in the UK, not only with the current Labour government, but also the previous Conservative government as well. Is that the case in Finland?
Absolutely. Finland is maybe one of the most hardcore WEF hubs here. If you looked up our president, Alexander Stubb, he was chosen to be the president just recently for 6 years. So he's deeply connected to all these kind of things. And he's even calling himself publicly a federalist. So he's for EU to become like a federation, I assume. Like in the recent, it's on the film, he's calling himself for that. And he's completely for everything, all of these things. And the prime ministers and the so-called right-wing moderate party, which maybe this Kokoomus it's called, the leadership is completely full on sold out to all these kind of things, 100%. So was the previous government and the president and all them. So they have really sewn up their faces, and there is perhaps one person in the parliament who is really publicly challenging these things which are going related to these vaccines and vaccine passes and health. I know her personally, and in the last parliament, there was also one person out of 200 who was raising voice over the matters. Most are just, completely silent and just going with the flow and trying to keep their job and not really wanting to look into the matters like eye to eye. It's really sad, but we have to do what we do, and even though we are few, we just fight back. We're never gonna
Well,
surrender.
I mean, actually, I would say that the vast majority of people probably do believe the way that we do. I mean, the narrative that the lying mainstream media have put out there, especially during the height of the pandemic, was that if you don't want to get vaccinated, then you are very much in the minority. But that wasn't the case. And if you come back to a comment you made earlier on, where you say if you believe that you're right and you believe in your product, for example, you'll happily debate the efficacy of it. But the truth is that when the narrative of being safe and effective came out, it was a complete lie. I remember Joe Biden in the United States saying, if you take the vaccine, you can't catch COVID. It's impossible to catch COVID. I mean, he lied to us. He at the very least, he was deeply misinformed. But I think it was worse than that. I think he is a very, very corrupt man. His whole family are corrupt. The recent news that he's pardoned his son Biden till the year 2042 for any future crimes that come out. I mean, it's laughable if it wasn't so serious and so deeply disturbing. There is one law for them and one law for everybody else. And our current prime minister is known as two-tier Keir because he is now operating a two-tier justice system and a two-tier policing system. And his poll ratings are plummeting. But the problem, of course, is that he is being supported by Klaus Schwab of the World Economic Forum and all the other globalist entities that are around. I want to go back to why it is so important, this particular court case, this principled stand that you took, because if there is going to be another pandemic, and let's face it, I think they're going to engineer something. Possibly sooner rather than later, especially when you look at the narrative, you look at the lying mainstream media, they're saying that H5N1 is going in. I mean, they tried monkeypox. That was I don't think that took, to be honest, but they're going back now, it seems, to H5N1. They're talking about high mortality rates of 50%, which is very high. In other words, 1 in 2 people who catch H5N1, if it becomes a full-blown pandemic, one in every second person basically is going to die. So it's a very high mortality rate. The fear factor, the sort of the narrative that they're putting out is once again using fear to control and manipulate how they get people to comply. And that was very evident here in the UK. They even had Brigade 77, which is a part of the British military, which is designed to attack hostile foreign nations, to disrupt their lines of communication, psychological operations, fifth generational warfare, pretty high stuff, high-tech stuff. But they actually used Brigade 77 to attack journalists and independent media and people like Dr. Simon Halter, for example, who, people like him and his colleagues who were standing up and taking that particular principled stand as well. So we know what they're doing. But why do you think it is so important to stop this type of worldwide COVID pass type situation? Because what will it lead to, in your opinion?
Well, in Finland, we are only 5.5 million people, and I think it's like 500, 600,000 adult people didn't take the vaccine, like 20%. And then I think the same, it's like 20 to 30% in the Western Europe as well. Now there are many people who took the vaccine and they don't want to take it anymore. A lot of harm coming, some people even dying, injured, paralyzed, blind eyes, all kind of problems for some people, not everybody, but for some people. So people know like somebody in their family or friend circles who have been suffering. I know people who are they cannot work anymore. They are out of work because the vaccine damaged their health here, and these kind of things. So there's gonna come, if they try to push this kind of vaccine pass with bird flu vaccine or whatever, it would lead up into the situation that hundreds of millions of people would be second-class citizens with their rights. That would happen like the same kind of like it happened before. So they try to make us bow down before the Pfizer, Moderna product. They've been, all of us know they've been judged to pay billions in money for the lies or the wrongs they've been doing before. And now in the USA, 5 states have sued Pfizer for misinformation regarding the marketing of the COVID vaccines, whatever. So this is a kind of like can you call it like a fascist, when you have a state and corporations having like an unhealthy union, unhealthy relationship and agreement? That's kind of modern day fascism, and now they try to do it with the medication. And this is very, very wrong. And when we look on the Nuremberg Code from the 1947, anybody have to look it up, like what happened after the Nazi Germany collapsed and the Second World War was over. So all the medical experiment has to be completely free, without any kind of threat or blackmail or misinformation or anything like that. So, and now the PCR test and the vaccine, they were not really free, like choose what you want, because if you didn't, you were not able to live your life normally. So they were breaching this code even then. And yeah, like this my court case, this may end up in the European Human Rights Court, even let's say next year, because now we complain at the High Court. And then if they don't receive this case in Finland, then we have to file it at the European Human Rights Court. And this will be like a stick in the wheel of these tyrants, because there is going to be this dispute going on. Well, this is just one thing. There are many things people are doing. But I think that the key thing for all of us is that if they next time try to do this, and I speak especially to those who are in the position of power, be it the company, the church, or sport organization, whatever, that you will not apply this vaccine pass to your clients, your employees, etc. Even though they try to do it in EU or wherever, you will not comply for that. And you may have to pay a price for that. This is not easy, but it's all worth it. Otherwise, we don't have the freedom. Without freedom, we don't have really anything.
What price do you put on your health? Because I mean, ultimately, that's what it is. I'm going to come on to a couple of things, but you reminded me actually when you talked about people in business, employees refusing to take the COVID shot. There's news coming out of the United States that Donald Trump, president-elect, who will be taking office in February after the inauguration, he'll be back in the White House, has said that all former military personnel in the United States who refused to take the COVID shot, many of them were special forces, Green Berets, there's quite a number of them, will be reinstated. And all their previous back pay that they would have had will be paid to them. What do you think of that?
Well, that's the right thing to do. And it's absolutely right. But I want to say this, I would love Donald Trump to denounce the Operation Warp Speed he started as well. We will see if he's going to ever do it. But we take the win. We take what is good, and it's good if he's going to reinstate those guys who were kicked out. Absolutely.
Do you think? I mean, from what I'm hearing from a lot of people that I interview and speak with internationally, there's a lot of people of the opinion that we might see a very different presidency in Donald Trump. And I think it's worth mentioning this because this won't just impact on America. It will impact on Canada. It will impact on Europe. It will impact around the world. There's no doubt about it. And there's a lot of reasons why I think a lot of eyes are on this just now. But do you think that he is going to go after the Clintons, the Soroses, the Bill Gates, the globalists entities, because quite clearly they've been hostile to him even before he took office the first time.
Yeah, very good. So let's take like Bill Gates, for example, who is the one of the main private funder of WHO and the vaccines there, and he's heavily invested in those things. So I'm just calculating like a short math. Like if Trump would go after Bill Gates on these vaccines, then he would have to admit that he made himself a mistake with the Operation Warp Speed. So it would require like really kind of humbling moment for him to do it. He should do it, but it's not very likely if we look what has been happening right now. Also with the Fauci, I was talking this already then when Donald Trump was president last time, and I support him in many things. I want to be straightforward about this. But when the Fauci was in the office, we always have to think about if there is a garden and somebody is the one who is overseeing the garden and there is a fox coming in. So it's the one who lets the fox in who has the more responsibility than the fox. Okay, let's say Donald Trump is the gardener and the fox is Anthony Fauci, or was back then. So Donald Trump let him be in the office and do all these things. It happened under his watch. He could have fired him. But he didn't. So it would be great if he went after Fauci or this Kash Patel. I think he can do it on his own. He doesn't have to ask permission from Trump. Kash Patel may do it. He should, and also for the Bill Gates. We will see, but I have a little doubt here because Trump has said when he nominated this Dr. Janet Eisenhower, hard pronouncing last name.
Yeah.
For the Surgeon General in the US. And in the nomination letter, Trump is saying that she was working in the front lines and these COVID vaccines have saved hundreds of millions of lives. This is right there in the paper, publicly, released by Trump and his team. So I'm not sure about that. Trump may go after these sex offenders, pedophiles, drugs trafficking, fentanyl and things from Canada, Mexico, closing the border. He may be good on these things, I think, and he would be good on way better than Kamala Harris to get peace to Ukraine, Russia, at least ceasefire and like a frozen conflict. But what I'm worried about also, or not really worried personally, but in the big picture, that if there comes like let's say this second pandemic, and if Trump is still trying to get this Operation Warp Speed 2.0, that may be a challenge because there is Robert Kennedy now there, and the Jay Batteria, I don't know how to say his last name, as the head of the National Institute of Health. So they've been the opponents of the COVID time. So they may be like a time of grace or easier time, and Trump cannot really do what he did last time, perhaps. I don't know. I hope.
I think. I mean, I absolutely agree with that. I absolutely agree with that. I think, though, that when you are, well, I can only imagine because I've never served as president before. I can only imagine what that would be like. Probably a good job I'm not president of the United States, because I would really declare war on the globalists. There would be no mercy. I would hunt them down. But the thing is, I'm quite serious about it. I don't mind saying it. I mean, I would be like, I'd be like a mongoose going after the cobras, doing the dance of death around them. But the thing is, which is probably a good reason why I'm not in that kind of position. But the point is this: when you are acting as president, when you're sitting there in that position, you are reliant on your advisors. I mean, you and I are both business entrepreneurs, we rely on our board of directors. We rely on people to inform us and to tell us, and we take experts in. Like, for example, the lady, what was her name? Burks. She used to have all these fancy scarves on every time she was at a news conference. Now, she's basically admitted that the whole 6 foot distancing thing was all a fraud. She was telling Trump, yes, you've got to vaccinate, warp speeds this, and Anthony Fauci was all for it, of course. So I guess if you're in a position where you're relying on advisors, and unfortunately, I think he got bad advice. I'm not trying to give him a get out of jail free card as such, but I can understand where if you're in that position, you are relying. You cannot be fully knowledgeable about every single aspect because it's such a large thing that he's doing. But I think you're absolutely spot on, especially in relation to RFK. Now, Robert Kennedy has always been opposed to the mandates, to the vaccines. And he's a powerful voice. Now, he's come out, he stopped his campaign, he came in with Trump. And absolutely, I think he will be a real guiding light, hopefully, to the president when he comes into power in February. My big concern is that they might try to stop him getting in, because we are seeing tensions. Now, Finland was invaded by, I'm pretty sure Finland's been invaded by Russia before, haven't they? Is that correct?
So the Finnish history goes shortly so that we were hundreds of years, we were part of Sweden. Finland was
Right.
like Sweden. And then 1809 till 1917, we were part of Russia as autonomic area.
Okay.
And then 1917, we got independent. But the Second World War, so we were not invaded by Russia. We lost some land to Soviet Union that time, but they were never invading us in the Second World War. We were brothers with Germany, so we had 200,000 German guys, Nazis here. So at the end, we fought the Nazis. We made a Moscow, and we kicked the Nazis out from here. So we were fighting Soviets and Nazis both. I don't know, maybe.
Yeah. Well, the point I was making is the Finns know how to fight. The Finnish people are tough people. You know, having met you, I know you're a tough guy, but you're a good guy. So the people in the freedom movement are lucky to have principled people like you in our ranks. But the point I was making is we see a lot of tensions around the world, and of course, the situation in Ukraine is bubbling away. I'm getting communications from people who have got connections to active service military personnel who have been told, be ready for deployment come January. What that means is they are being given forward advance notice that they're going to be deployed potentially to a foreign theatre of war by January. They've not been told where they're going because of operational security OPSEC. But the point is they're being told once Christmas and New Year's out the way, it's game on. And the only theatre of war I can imagine would be Ukraine, boots on the ground, where they're going to actually be deployed against Russian forces. Are you hearing anything about that? Because there's been a lot of talk of conscription or draft, as the Americans tend to call it, call-ups of civilians into military service. Are you seeing anything like that? And do you have conscription currently in your country? Do young men, for example, women, go into the military? Do they serve any kind of term?
Yeah, so Finland is in a way special place militarily. We have the biggest army in Europe, bigger than Germany, France, or Italy, because we have the conscription for every male to go to the army. So even though we are a small nation, we still have the biggest wartime, like an army personnel and stuff like that. Personally, I can say what I did with my army stuff last year. No, this year. So our defense minister, Antti Häkkänen, there was a rumor going on, and I think it's still there, that they may try to make a Finnish army for men, so that you can never quit, that you are always like a possession of the army. And now that we are part of NATO, I don't want to be a reserve guy for the NATO. I'm not gonna obey any foreign commands and so on. So I personally actually resigned from the reserves earlier this year. So Finnish army, I'm never under the command of the Finnish army. They cannot do it, even though if there was a war. But our army is here. They made a deal this with USA, different DCA, Defense Collaboration Agreement, and there are gonna be 15 different bases of American army here in Finland. And already there were these B-52 bombers were here just maybe last week or 2 weeks ago, and I don't know what is going on, but I don't support Finland being part of NATO. I think we should be neutral and independent and have a strong our own defense. But this is the situation right now. If there comes a war, Russia and NATO, the challenge is my country is a really like a front line here. This is the reality here, and yeah, so we all know it here, and so. And I think we shouldn't have getting the NATO because now it will be certain we are part of front lines if there is a war. Of course, even though we stayed completely out of NATO and DCA, there could still be a war. You never know. But I think, in my opinion, the risk is now higher that we are part of this globalist army here, and I don't support Putin going over the line in Ukraine. I understand everything there is behind and study that. That's another discussion. But yeah, this is for Finland.
Do you think? I mean, I want to go back to a little bit about the COVID pass, the court case, and really what led to you fighting so strongly against that and taking that powerful stand that you did. But ultimately, why do you think the globalists seem to be so obsessed with getting a needle into everybody's arms? I mean, what do you think is the end game for them? Because the reality is sometimes stranger than fiction. It would appear from my point of view, and it's certainly in my opinion, that they are obsessed with controlling people. Do you think that there is a connection? It's not just about intimidating people and using fear to push their narrative, but that there might actually be maybe even a technological purpose to why they're trying to put these products into people. Do you think, for example, that they have something else that might be contained within these vaccines that could be used to control the masses or to even influence the way they think? I mean, do you think we're heading into that kind of territory? And why do you think the globalists are doing what they're doing?
Yeah, very good. So let me say first the easy part. One thing they are in this to make money, as they made billions of money, but I don't think that's the only thing here. And if I give a little short version of like a bigger picture I see here being painted for all of us, is that now that they did this control stuff with COVID pass and maybe try to do it with the vaccine pass, in EU they are building up this digital ID, and in Finland, if you want, you can already have it. I even got the letter from government that now if you want, you can just go online and activate it. So I could do it, even if I now want it. I'm not going to do it. So then they're going to have this digital ID, and they're going to very likely have this vaccine information connected to that ID. Then they are building this digital euro, central bank digital currency, you can call it as well. Then they will collect it, that the digital ID and digital wallet. Then very likely, as they are obsessed with the climate change and climate hoax stuff, they will put like how much emissions you are doing and your carbon footprint, and they will connect that somehow there and put like a social credit score and stuff like that. And then ultimately, now I go a little further from this, what I'm proposing here, or giving just an idea, is that if you look what Vatican, Pope, and Muslims and some Jews who practice Judaism, like a high-profile people, are they are meeting every year, I think, with this kind of like a global summit of religion, and stuff like that. And if you look when you combine all these things, they may have a goal one day to have this one religion, and they try to put these religions under one umbrella. And then this comes like the last piece of the control, last piece of tyranny. So first is health, it's easier, then money, and there may come like a cyber pandemic, like Klaus Schwab was warning that wait for the cyber pandemic. Yeah, and when if it comes that the online things go really, bank goes down and everything like a total blackout, then they will come with this, hey, now you can have this digital ID, and now you can have a digital wallet that everything opens up. It's like a COVID pass. So this is what they may do next time, or similar to this. But as a Christian, I believe the Revelation chapter 13 is describing this time when there is a pretty much total control in the world with this beast or antichrist. And it says that it forces the rich and the poor to take this mark to the head or right hand, that without that you cannot sell or buy. And it's, the name of the the beast there. And so they will bind this Diki ID to the religion at the last, and you have to say no to Christ if you want to have the chip. And I'm not gonna bow down to that. So ultimately, I'm seeing this like a battle between good and evil, Satan and Jesus Christ, hell and heaven, saints and sinners, and the unseen world is in the battle. We know how it ends as Christians. How is the very end? It's gonna be very good, but there's gonna be tough times. And yeah, and it sounds like science fiction, and what Klaus Schwab was saying even some years ago, that they will have this chip putting in the head, or so he's already talking about that. It's all in the public, everybody can find the video and stuff like that. So, and in Sweden some people are already using the chip, and it may become so that you can have this is my just imagination, that there comes this digital ID, it's then online or your phone, whatever, and blah blah blah, and then they will introduce like, hey, if you want to have it even more easy, you can just have a chip in your hand or whatever. So they go like step by step and push and push and push, and and stuff like that. So and regarding the Trump, like next 4 years, my concern is like, if there comes this cyber pandemic that they've been talking, and it's blamed maybe on Russia or whatever, China, whatever, can be them or all them together, whatever. So is Trump gonna, with Elon Musk, who is heavily, I support Elon on free speech stuff and stuff, but I'm not 100% sure would he be willing to say no to digital ID and these kind of things. I don't know. We will see. So it's a very interesting 4 years ahead regarding that.
It certainly is, and you've raised some very, very interesting points. We're going to have to get you back on, Mika. I mean, I've always enjoyed talking to you, and this is the first time I've actually managed to get you on the show, and it's been great. The time has flown past, and that always happens when I've got great guests on. I could go on for another couple of hours talking with you, but unfortunately, we wouldn't be able to do that this time. But look, we'll need to get you back on the show, because there's a lot more I want to talk to you about in relation to all of this. Let me just hand the floor to you, though, because as I always do with my great guests, I always give them the last and final word. And so for the next 3 or 4 minutes, Mika, the floor is yours. Say whatever you want to say when you go.
Yeah. Merry Christmas. Yeah, it's coming soon. What I would love to say to you guys is that Yeah. Like in the court, when I was saying my last piece of my talk to the judges and opponents, government's lawyer and this big company lawyer, I was sharing my my faith shortly. So I was telling them that I have met God in a personal way in Jesus Christ, and I have met His goodness. And as I shared that, the reason I didn't take the vaccine was that I knew it can do harm. And we, as Christians around the world, hundreds of millions, we believe the body is the temple of God, that take care of that. And then I said that my God would never, ever tell any politician or official that, hey, put this kind of vaccine pass on that people can be free, that He is for freedom. He would never demand this kind of health pass from His creation, that they could live the life He gave them. Even if you're atheist or Muslim or Hindu or Buddhist, Jesus would never demand this kind of thing from you. So I just want you to understand that God is good, and He is for good, and He is for freedom, and you can find Him in Jesus, and call His name to invite Him and into your life. And yeah, some great things like with Russell Brand from UK. He has found Christ recently, and really interesting to follow him. And I think this is the most precious thing I can say to the last year. I don't. This is everything I have at the end of the day. So they may kill me, but
Well,
they cannot take this away.
yeah, we are in the fight of our lives. The globalists have declared war on humanity. I think the interesting question is who controls the globalists. And I think you know the answer to that. I know the answer to that. And it's the God of this world. It's not the God of heaven. And God is supreme over all, but we know who's in charge. You just need to see the corruption, the child trafficking, the sex crimes, the evil that's going on to know where their direction is coming from. And I've often had conversations where I'm speaking to people and say, well, isn't it strange how there appears to be a controlling mind pulling the strings behind the scenes, where you have presidents and kings and prime ministers all coming out with phrases like build back better, all at the same time, all in lockstep with one another. There is an intelligence behind that. The problem is it's very evil. So, I applaud you for being a man of truth, a man of faith, a principled freedom fighter. I haven't been to Finland, but something, if I ever go there, I'll certainly be coming to see you. And once again, it'd be great to see you in person, But Mika, I would just like to say well done on the court case. You've taken a very brave stand. You're fighting, you're battling hard. Where can people find you? Where can people follow you? Tell us a little bit how they can locate you.
Yeah, so I'm active on Twitter, Mika Vauhkala, the handle, and then on Facebook, Mika Vauhkala. And then on TikTok and Instagram, Max Boldberg, MaxBoldberg. So it means maximal boldness. So you can find that. And then on maxboldberg.com, you can support what I'm doing. There are many different things. There are cups. This is like a Russell Brand cup. That guy really needed his coffee. I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah, it's coming in. Yeah, I see it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Cool.
there is, and it's saying
Very
like,
good.
suing the government, the phaser over COVID pass, and yeah, Russell Brand quoted. He was on with Asim Malhotra after the court case, talking about this, and this is so you can have those kind of things, and that's it.
All right. Well, look, what to do? You send me those links by DM. We'll put it up into the main body of the tweet that goes out. People just need to then click on the link and they can get access to all of that. But I would just like to say a personal thank you to Mika. It's always good to talk to you, and I very much appreciate you taking time out of a very busy schedule to spend time with us here in not just the UK but around the world. We have a fairly large international audience. A lot of Americans follow this channel. A lot of Canadians. A lot of people in Europe, of course, as well. But thank you once again. It's been a real pleasure to have you on.
Thank you, Jim. And I can call you the president of Scotland, right?
You never know; it could happen one day. But it's been great to have you on. And to all the people out there who are listening to this, Mika's a real freedom fighter. If you ever want to know what a real freedom fighter looks like, there you go. Mika Vauhkala is the real deal. And he doesn't just talk the talk, he walks the walk as well. So give him a follow, watch what he's doing. He's taking on the beast, as it were. He's taking on the system. And you got to admire people that have got the courage and the gravitas to do that. Fair play and total respect to him, but also total respect to each and every one of you, because we really appreciate the comments and the likes and the shares that you give us. And it takes a real brave person to come on sometimes with me and talk about these subjects. They're not always the easiest subjects to discuss. But, I'm very, very grateful to each and every one of you, especially to all the new members who've been coming on recently. I'll get to know you all in due course. But thank you once again. As I always like to say, you guys out there, you're the real stars of this show. But anyway, until next time, this is Jim Ferguson. Stay safe. We'll speak soon. Bye-bye for now.
Thank you.